My name is Joe Shannon with Shannon Law Group, and I'm here to answer a lot of questions for you today. One of the first questions that we're asked a lot of times is, what is a personal injury case? A personal injury case, first of all, involves the court system. So the court system is, there's two different types of court systems. There's the criminal courts and the civil courts. Today we'll talk about what we call the civil courts. That is disputes over money damages. The criminal courts are dealing with whether or not somebody committed a crime. Usually that's the prosecuting attorney's office. Usually that's the state going against a defendant. In a personal injury case, somebody that's been aggrieved, that has been harmed, that has had personal injury, will bring a case against that person that was either negligent or reckless or intentionally hurt them. So, for example, at my firm, we handle cases involving typically catastrophic personal injury. That means that somebody has been permanently injured by another, by a person or a corporation. Let me give you an example. If somebody is driving down the expressway, let's talk about Illinois. I-55 is an expressway. It's called the Stevenson Expressway in Chicagoland. There's a lot of trucks on there. If one of the trucks that is on there, unfortunately, that person decides to drive for 24 straight hours and falls asleep and crashes into the back of stopped traffic, that can cause a lot of personal injuries. Those are the type of cases that we take. Usually, what happens in a personal injury case is that there's been somebody negligent or reckless or intentionally causes a harm. What happens after that? Then there is what they call a personal injury case. Does that make sense to you? It should, because that's how we solve disputes in America. The way we solve disputes in America is we don't go knock on somebody's door and say, hey, Mr. Truck Driver, you permanently injured my father, and therefore I'm going to permanently injure you. No, we made a decision as a country that we would solve our disputes in front of a judge and have a jury of your peers decide who is at fault, who's on the right side or wrong side of a lawsuit. I usually represent people that have been injured due to the negligence or recklessness or intentional conduct of another. What type of damages are available in that? Well, think about it. The reason why we bring cases is to put people back to where they were precisely before a crash. Well, that's not possible. If we had a magic wand, we would use the magic wand. The person would go back to where they were 5 minutes before the crash. The big rig or truck that ran into them wouldn't do that, and they'd all go on their merry way. Unfortunately, the reality of it is that the truck did cause the crash. A lot of these things are permanent. They are unchangeable. They last for a lifetime. And so how do we as Americans put somebody back to where they were prior to that intentional or reckless or negligent conduct? We award money damages. It's really not an award, it's more of a replacement. For example, when you're driving down the expressway, you don't think that you're going to have to be in the hospital for 6 months. And the amount of medical bills that will be incurred, which are going to be in the millions, the time that you've lost your job, or if you've lost the ability to think or to reason or to mow your lawn anymore, to enjoy a nice walk with your wife or your husband or your son, or to be able to hold your baby, all of those types of things. Those are what we call damages. What are the damages in a type of case? Well, there's economic damages, which we talked about with medical bills, lost wages, any other out-of-pocket type of loss that you would have had. And usually, that's not what we really focus on here at Shannon Law Group, because that money goes to somebody else. Like, for example, if you incur medical bills as a result of a serious crash, that money is going to go to doctors, It's going to go to hospitals. It's going to go to insurance companies. If you lose your job, typically you don't work just for work's sake, you work to live. So you would have worked already. So that's going to basically pay some of your bills, your mortgage, all those types of things, the place where you live. The real damages in a serious injury case are what we call non-economic damages. What are non-economic damages? Those are the important ones. Like I said, most of us don't work for work's sake. I mean, I love my job. I love what I do. I have a mission in life. My job is to help people. I really like my job. I love the people I work with, all those types of things. But I really work for is to spend time with my family on the weekends, in the evening, before school, before work, that type of thing. That is what your normal life is. That is what your enjoyment of life is. We also do not want to have a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of losses in our life, the enjoyment of life. That's what the non-economic damages are. So let me break that down a little bit. If you've lost your normal life, say for example, you are a 35-year-old man. You loved more than ever getting up really early to go to your workout group with your friends. After that, you go to work, then you come back, and then you spend some time in the evening with your wife, your kids, your significant other. You liked walking with them. You liked playing frisbee with them. You liked going out to restaurants with them. Those are important events. Now, what if you multiplied that? If you're a 35-year-old man, you're hit by a big truck, and you can't do those, or maybe you can do those things, but it hurts every single moment when you're doing those things. That's worth money. That's worth time. Those are numbers that a jury comes up with. And the job of a lawyer is to explain to a jury, and they know this already, how that has affected your life. How is your life different because of that reckless act of that trucking company or somebody that took a shortcut, didn't do a background check on somebody that's driving without the proper license, somebody that's driving without the proper training, somebody that's driving, they have no business being behind an 18-wheeler. They have no business being there because they weren't properly trained. There's no safety mechanisms in place at this trucking company to make sure that that person doesn't injure and kill people. Now, all of these things I'm talking to you about are things that have really happened in specific cases that we've represented people. We've had 30-some-year-old fathers that have been permanently, irrevocably damaged. They can never walk the same. We had one fella a few years ago, had 2 kids, was a really hard worker. He basically was wheelchair bound after 6 months, but he got in his wheelchair and he went back to work and worked from his wheelchair because he needed the money to pay for his kids' education, for their housing, and his wife worked nights. Those are the type of people that we represent. Now, are his loss of normal life huge? Yes. Is his pain and suffering huge? Yes. Every single movement that he makes, it hurts. And it's going to hurt forever. So we're talking about 50 years of that. How much is that worth? I think it's worth a lot of money. And I'm willing to ask for that money in front of a jury because they get it. As opposed to an insurance company who's going to take a look at how many medical bills you have and seem to multiply that medical bill number by a certain number and say, this is the number we're going to give you. I don't believe in that. I believe that if somebody is reckless or negligent towards you, or a corporation is, you should be entitled to the amount that you've been injured. And that typically includes medical bills and lost wages for sure. But I always talk to juries about that is not what the case is about. It's about loss of a normal life. It's about the pain and suffering that's on an hourly, daily basis. And that's what we're out to recover for you, those numbers. Now, typically in the real world, there's limits to what you can recover because of the insurance coverage that the defendant has. So that's what we need to find out. And that's why you need a lawyer. You need to figure out how much insurance coverage that defendant has. Here's some other ways for you to hedge your bets in that situation as well. It's important that you procure uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. What is that? Well, all of us have tons of insurance. Homeowners insurance, health insurance, auto insurance, disability insurance, all those things. But when it comes to automobile insurance, you can buy what they call uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. What it does is it protects you in case somebody is driving around with no insurance, which happens a lot in my world, or somebody that has only $25,000 worth of liability coverage. So you're basically driving around and being exposed to that type of defendant. What can you do? Well, if you keep liability coverage for yourself of $1 million, you can ask your insurance agent for you to have $1 million of uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. Typically, that premium is very low compared to your liability insurance premium. So ask them for it, check the box, pay the number. That way you have the peace of mind of knowing that if you get hit by a reckless driver who has $0 or $25,000, which is the minimum in the state of Illinois, then you have $1 million of coverage available for you if you have those types of damages. There are things called statutes of limitations. What does that mean? It means that in our court system, you have a specific amount of time to file a court case against someone. Let's take the easy one. In a car wreck where somebody has been reckless or negligent and crashed into you, you typically have 2 years from the date of the trauma to bring a cause of action against that defendant. That's what a statute of limitations is. If you've been in a car wreck, if somebody causes a crash and runs into you, say they run a stop sign or a stoplight, and you're injured, what should you do? Well, I always tell folks, don't have your behavior controlled by a personal injury lawsuit. No, use common sense. Go seek medical treatment. Have the doctor evaluate you. I've had folks that have come in to see me after a crash. They've gone to the doctor initially, gone to the hospital, gone through a triage, and then been discharged. They told them to go see an orthopedic doctor or go see their doctor, and they haven't done so. And I asked them, why haven't you done that? Well, one lady that came into me, I said, why haven't you gone back to the orthopedic surgeon? She said, I just haven't had time. Well, she went back. The orthopedic surgeon took a look at her and took a look at her films, did a fresh set of films, and told her that if she had not come in to see him, she may be paralyzed. The reason is because something bad happened to her cervical disc during the crash and it had to be fixed right away. So use common sense, go see the doctor. Doctors first, lawyers a long way after that. We put together a number of books to help you because one of the things that our missions of Shannon Law Group is to make sure that you know your rights, that you kind of understand exactly the inside baseball of what's going on. So I put together a book called Transportation Law. In this book, it'll talk about what happens after a car crash, if you get involved in a personal injury case, what happens from the time that you file a case all the way through a trial and even an appeal. and how to deal with a lawyer and how to look for a lawyer. If you text us at 312-847-2428, we'll send you a free copy of Transportation Law. This one will give you the inside baseball on what's going on in these types of cases. A lot of cases that where people call us aren't cases that they need us to resolve. For example, if there's a really small case, there's no permanent injuries, there's maybe some property damage only, and the doctors have cleared you. You really have no injuries other than maybe some cuts and bruises, that type of thing. We wrote a book called How to Settle Your Own Auto Accident Claim. And here it is. If you text us at 312-847-2428, we'll send you a copy of this book. Basically, this teaches you how to deal with insurance company adjusters. It teaches you how to deal with your smaller case without the need for a lawyer. This one will be sent to you directly to whatever address you give it to us. We also have a copy of it downloadable from our website. So take a look at that one, and this will help you with that. Those are types of cases that we don't get involved in, but we want to make sure that our friends and our clients are able to be on the same footing as an insurance adjuster when they make decisions as to how to resolve their claim. Another book that was put together by Pat Cummings. A lot of the cases that we have involve trucking cases where a big truck recklessly or negligently crashes into one of our clients and causes a horrific situation. So Patrick put together a great book, Avoiding a Trucking Nightmare. This also is great for the inside baseball on these type of cases. What happens during a case, what happens after the case is filed, how to interact with the lawyer, that type of thing. So we will send you a copy of this book if you text us at 312-847-2428. That's text us at 312-847-2428, and we'll be sending you a copy of this in the mail free of charge. This will be helpful for you in your odyssey of dealing with your case if something bad like that happens to you. Again, our mission at Shannon Law Group is to represent people zealously. But if we cannot represent you, we want to help you, educate you, to make sure that you do the right thing in your case. Another question that comes up, do I need a lawyer in a personal injury case? Well, that depends. Typically, our firm, it's a mutual type of thing. We have to decide to represent you, and you have to decide to hire us. Once you hire us, you are the boss, and we give the advice. And any big decisions, we'll come to you, and we'll give you our counsel, our advice as to what decision to make, but you'll be the final decision maker. Some cases don't need a lawyer. A very small case, something that you can handle yourself, in which we would give you this book, How to Settle Your Own Auto Accident Claim. In those types of cases, you do not need a lawyer. The cases that we typically deal with are somebody that's been catastrophically injured. There's a ton of liens, medical bill liens, insurance company liens, disability liens, those types of things that the court can somehow work with to lessen those liens. And there's typically enough insurance coverage to make sure that you are covered and to make sure that you're adequately paid. Those are the type of cases that we typically deal with, and those are the ones that you probably do need a lawyer on. Another question that's asked many times is, how much is my case worth? Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Well, there's a number of factors that go into that. The number one factor is who is at fault? If you're at fault, 100% at fault for your own crash, say for example, you're driving and you've been drinking and you were drunk and you run into a pole, you do not have a case. You caused your own crash and therefore you don't have a case. However, most of the time that we're consulted, it's the other way around. Typically, it's the drunk driver that hits you, or it's the reckless trucking company that hits you, or it's the texting driver that hits you. In those types of cases, the negligence or reckless conduct is important. However, your case may depend upon how much insurance coverage is available. So say, for example, that there's a big trucking company that hits you. It happens to be a Fortune 500 company, and they did not vet the driver. They did not discipline the driver over years and years of a number of negligent acts, no training, that type of thing. Your case may be worth more just because that company can pay for it. If you are hit by an uninsured motorist drunk driver, unless you have the proper uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, you may be in a difficult situation because the insurance company is the one that will typically pay for that type of situation. You want to make sure that you have enough uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage so that if you do get hit by one of those folks, you have coverage to cover at least part of your injury. The first thing that you should talk about in the first meeting with a lawyer is money. Because in civil cases, that's what it's about. It's not about retribution. It's not about getting even. It's about recovering money for the client. So, how do you pay a lawyer? Well, I used to work for insurance companies. I used to work for big companies, and they used to pay me by the hour. And so every hour I worked, I'd write it down, and then we'd send them a bill at the end of the month, and they would pay the bill sometimes. In a personal injury case, when I'm representing you, I only receive money if I win for you or if I come through for you. In Illinois, as in most states, in order for you to hire a lawyer, there must be a written fee agreement. And that written fee agreement lays it out. This is how the typical fee agreement works. You sign an agreement with the lawyer that says, Mr. Lawyer, you will receive a percentage of the amount of recovery plus the costs that you incur in representing me. So say, for example, you come to me, you've been hit by a truck, it's a bad situation, you need the help of a lawyer. I come meet with you, I must give you a written fee agreement. We talk about it in our first meeting. You agree to that. You end up paying at the end of the case, which could be a year, 2 years, sometimes 4 or 5 years. You end up paying only if we win for you. And so you end up paying us a percentage of whatever we recover, plus you reimburse us for all of the costs that we incur. What are some of the costs that are incurred? Well, we're very, very frugal with respect to cost because we understand that comes out of your recovery. So we make believe it's like we represent our relatives or our significant other. And we want to make sure we only pay those costs which are absolutely necessary for your case. What are they? Well, typically involves a filing fee. So anything that's out of pocket from us, we front that for you, which is ethical under the rules. And we will file your case. We have to pay folks to take depositions as far as the costs for a court reporter. We have to pay expert fees. We have to pay doctors, all those types of things. And so that are some of the costs and fees that come out of it. So typically, you will not be digging into your pocket to pay us, just like an insurance company does when I was a defense lawyer. You won't be paying us anything. At the end of the case, we'll take that money out of the amount that we recover for you. I'm often asked, what's the difference between a settlement and a verdict? Well, we typically involve the court system in our cases because, number one, we go through a very intricate process of making sure that the case that we take is worthy of being filed. So there's a number of cases where I would say probably 80 to 90% of the cases we do not take because they are not, they're cases that can be resolved on the client by their own, or can be resolved without the court process, that type of thing. After we file a case, the whole goal is to get to a jury verdict in front of a jury of our client's peers, and make sure that we were able to put the case on in front of a judge and a jury, and then the jury will deliberate, and they'll come back and they'll render a verdict. I'm sure most people have seen that on TV. We put the case on, the defense puts their case on, and then the jury decides who's on the right side of the lawsuit and comes up with a decision. So that's a verdict. And we've done that on multiple occasions. That is a great way to resolve disputes. That happens in about 5% of the cases. The other 95% get resolved via settlement. And in our experience, that happens after everybody knows, both the defense knows and the defense insurance company knows, and we know that all the cards are on the table. This is what's going to be put in front of a jury. And typically, the closer it gets to a jury trial is when it becomes what I call ripe for settlement. Some cases are ripe for settlement right away because there's limited insurance coverage. There's the defendant insurance company wants to pay right away. That is rare that they'll pay the full value of a case. But in my experience, you will have a settlement closer to the time that a jury is impaneled, and the decision of how much is going to be paid moves from the insurance company offices to the jury room to make a decision as to how much is going to be paid. And so usually the amount increases during that time, depending on the strength of the case.